Now that we have laid down enough videos on the firmament for the second day, at this point, to really understand the Bible position, I mean, it's there. We decided to set aside the rest of the firmament videos that we are going to do later, especially history, covering that throughout. Basically later in the series, we'll come back to it, and we're going to move on to the third day now. Once again, this day is monumental, not just with dry land appearing, but with the credible witnesses of Genesis. We can understand far more, such as the rivers from Eden and the Garden of Eden, we'll get to as well. Now, these two topics are something we have spent a lot of time locating geographically, scientifically, etc., and no one has put forth a more coherent finding on either of these topics than we have. For mega information on those, watch our Rivers from Eden series. It's a whole series. And our Find the Garden of Eden series, another whole series. That's how much we put into this. No one's ever touched these findings in over 6 years now, and they won't, because we've established this based on the ancient witnesses, the credible ones whom we've tested, and we can say they are credible. There's far too much ancient evidence that basically place these indisputably. Now, we'll offer some of those in brief, but one will have to watch those videos, those series, to understand the content, or read the search for King Solomon's treasure. There's a whole chapter on the rivers from Eden. There's a whole chapter in the Garden of Eden there. We go further into the Garden of Eden in First Enoch and in Jubilees for both, because both actually map this out in what we call the modern Philippines. So yes, it may sound like we're drawing conclusions that we did not prove out, and we'll get that every now and then. That's about as laughable as a conclusion as someone could draw from this channel. All right, you don't have to agree with everything that we teach and find in our research, but you can't say we don't research. That's because, we already did prove those things in previous videos and books, multiple. So if you want to know, well, watch those, read the books, and it's there. And you can understand our position. Trying to debate without understanding, that's just willing ignorance, and that isn't happening here. You will be muted. Our channel, our rules. However, from a different angle in this series, many look at Genesis 2, where you find the garden planted, as well as the rivers from Eden detail. That's the detail. They were already planted and carved out. Here on day 3, we're going to show you, and we're going to prove it. But because of the illiterate Pharisees, or rabbis, we hear, well, Genesis 2 is a second creation. It's another creation. That's stupid. It has always been. It has never made any sense to Scripture, because Scripture says no to that many times over. The first heaven and first earth still apply, as does the wrap-up from Genesis 1:30, 2:1, 2:2. It's right there. It says it even multiple times. Creation has ended. And then you read Genesis 2 and you say, oh, there's another creation. Okay, learn how to read, scholars. Learn how to read, rabbis. And scholars, don't read the rabbis. They're Pharisees. That's just, haven't you listened to Messiah's warning about their leaven and about their turning Torah against Torah, Mark 7:9? So basically, it's complete as of the 6th day. There is no more creation after that. No, Eve wasn't created. She was formed, but she was created on day 6. Now, we're going to show you that too, and that will make sense once you see it. We'll get to that in the second week, don't worry. We'll talk a little bit about it on day 6 as well. You can see that what we're doing in this series is we're laying down more detail than probably anyone really ever has, certainly in video form and teachings, and more so even just in the sheer volume of what we've covered so far. This is part 24, and we're already, just on day 3, just starting day 3. Or what are we doing? Are we just dragging it out? No, there's that much scripture. This is not reading Genesis and then saying, oh, well, I think. That's what scholars do, and it's illiterate. It's the dumbest way to view things. They don't know what they're talking about, and the initials behind their name doesn't give them the right to change scripture and to speculate when scripture actually interprets scripture for them. Therefore, their opinions are meaningless and moot. Again, if you haven't watched the previous videos in this series even, it's like showing up for a class more than halfway through the semester, and then, you yell at your professor for conclusions that he's drawing based on laying down months of facts and information, but of course, you were the one who wasn't there and didn't learn. That's your fault, not the professor. And the good news is this is our channel, and you'll follow our rules here. So you won't do that here, and your professor wouldn't allow it either. Let's just call it what it is. Now, this is a big one. How exactly did this whole land appearing work, and where did the water go that went off of the earth? Where did it go? Genesis doesn't say, but see, Genesis doesn't stand alone as a witness. That's the problem with most scholars. They don't do their research. And how can we say the rivers from Eden were carved out of the rock on what is now the bottom of the ocean floor after the flood? Yeah, there was a communist channel who tried to ridicule that. They look incredibly foolish now as we have obliterated their illiterate nonsense. And wow, I mean, we could start a channel just on the stupid things that they've done and said. But anyway, well, once again, we don't just say things like that here. There is precedence, ancient precedence, and this knowledge has been established for thousands of years and was the way the Bible was taught before manipulators came in and changed the word. See, that is what we're doing, and we do it with credibility. It is the new doctrine of the modern church, which knows nothing of locating the rivers from Eden. We've proven that. Just watch the series, and you're going to laugh some at some of the dumb things that they've said. And the scholars that try to prove themselves illiterate, ignoring what the passages even say. I mean, that's pretty bad to call yourself a Bible scholar but ignore the Bible. Huh? Okay, whatever, man. We should just push them aside. By the end of this portion of this series, you will have a clear picture as to how the third day occurred, and it is crucial. This is so important because you'll never understand the earth. You'll never understand the flood and how it happened and why it happened. See, they're tied together. It's the cosmology of creation that drives the flood. This is important, especially as 2 Peter 3 warned that this is what would be lost by our age in willing ignorance. So one will never understand that just reading Genesis alone. Sorry, but that's just a fact. Because Genesis, written by Moses, was not the only book Moses wrote about creation and the flood. He wrote Jubilees, and the temple priests label it, and use it as Torah. And Moses even quotes it in Genesis. Oh, we've covered that. Go back and watch the series if you have not. Now, so speculating, as many scholars just make up whatever they want in this regard. And we've seen, on creation, the flood, I've never seen such nonsense myself. They try to find the 5 rivers from Eden, in fact, by, ignoring that there's a source river. So they only look for 4. And they're looking at modern rivers, which, already failed because they're created in rainfall, and rain did not exist. Oops. What? No. Oh, we'll cover that. We'll show you the scripture coming up. So it's really, before they even started their journey of bad guesses, they already set a foundation on nonsense and ignorance because they are ignoring. That's what ignorance means. You're ignoring something. And they're ignoring the word. They're ignoring scripture. Even just Genesis itself, they're ignoring. because it tells you the geography of the rivers from Eden. It tells you where you can find them, and you can't go finding them someplace else. You can't put them all in a continent when it's very clear that they're not. You can't put them all in Africa when the Hiddekel flows east of Assyria, and Assyria is not in Africa. That is incredibly illiterate. All of these things, just complete and utter nonsense when you look at all of these. I mean, we could oh wow, we could spend a whole series on the rivers from Eden. Oh, wait a minute, we do. Watch those, and believe me, you will be blown away if you haven't. You don't have to agree with every word that we say. That's okay. But this will challenge traditional thinking, and it will do it in such a strong way, you'll never look at this the same again. Now, let's establish this with firm foundation, unlike most scholars. Here we go. Genesis 1, verse 9 in the KJV, which is what we typically read from when we're covering the modern canon of Scripture. We still abide by the KJV because it really is the best of translations out there. There's really not anything better. If someone wants to try to make a case that one's a little better because of a text here or there, yeah, okay, whatever. But the reality is that one is the more credible. But it's still not perfect. And we know that, and we've said that many times. We've proven that. We have a Who Changed Genesis video. In fact, watch that and you'll see we prove that Genesis was changed, the modern Genesis, in the KJV. It's also missing the name of YHWH 6,800 plus times. So it's been manipulated. But see, here's the thing. You can still trust it, right? Because we can fix those manipulations. We have the Hebrew. We can go back. We can see that it's YHWH, not Lord, and we can replace it and know for ourselves. You'll see us doing that in our reading, but we don't do that on screen because we're not going to change the KJV. We're not going to do it until we publish it. And when we do that, then we'll clear up all of those things. Until we have that publishing, we're not, and we do not use the Sefer Bible, and we will not use the Sefer Bible because we've proven it too is manipulated. Adding the book of Jasher, which is over 100 occult accounts within, in the most blasphemous book that you could ever try to equate to Torah, to Genesis and Jubilees in a very illiterate sense. We caught them using old texts that were corrected, changing the sun to the moon in Enoch, for instance, and they do it in Jubilees as well, basically relying on an old text full of error from 100 years before, and R.H. Charles fixed it, which is the basis of what we are using is R.H. Charles, the translator, from the early 1900s. And they said they reviewed that, but they ignored it, and they went with the corrupted text and said, though if they actually read what R.H. Charles said in his margin notes, he made it very clear that they took the word moon from one sentence and moved it and replaced the word sun with moon, thus changing the whole doctrine there. Again, the Sefer didn't do that. It was done by a translator 100 years before Charles, who was a pathetic translator. I mean, hey, at least he tried, okay? But Charles fixed it. And they don't represent the change because it doesn't represent their worldview, their doctrine of Judaism, Messianic Judaism, essentially. Whether they call themselves that or not, that's where they're deriving that from. So let's read. And Elohim said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. Now notice, what is going on here? Right? Where's the motion? Where's the movement here? Not land. See, we covered Moses and David are clear. Mountains, ancient hills, they don't move. That's what they say. They're immovable. We will get to the unscientific theories, such as Pangea or Pangaea in origin. Yes, the Seder god Pan and his Nephilim breeder Gaia, called Mother Earth because she bred Nephilim. Isn't that nice? Oh, you've got to be kidding. I mean, that's not science. That's the occult. And we can all know better, and we will, because that's one of the dumbest theories ever in history. And we'll prove that. But we have a whole video coming on that. It'll be fun. And the thinking that we live on, well, turtles, basically, that move and smash into each other, on a whirling ball that spins at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, 66,000 miles per hour around the sun, and another 200 plus thousands miles per hour hurling through the universe. Yeah. I'm sorry, that's called logic. That's called science. That's called stupid. That's all that has ever been. All of it. So that is the origin of that, by the way. It's an ancient occult legend. That basically the foundation of the earth was a turtle. How about that? And that's what they're doing. They're characterizing continents as slow-moving turtles. Stupid. They call that science. Wow. It's an ancient occult doctrine, once again, but we'll demonstrate that soon. Now, this pretty much says exactly this. It says that the motion here belonged to the waters. See, the waters moved, not the land. And they have to be as there is too much water still, right? So it's the waters that need to move off of the face of the surface of the earth, what will become the surface once the waters are removed. Now, half went above the firmament. We know that from previous videos from day 2, right? So half went above the firmament, right? But you still have half of the waters left on the earth, which is still water world, right? There's no land seen yet. So the water moves, it's gathered into one place according to Genesis, but how exactly does that even work? Well, again, Yahuwah gives us this detail. It has never truly been hidden except for by the church. Now that's pretty bad. And its movement now makes dry land appear. See? Interesting. See, that's always been right there in Genesis, but understanding Genesis without Jubilees especially, is never the way Moses intended us to read Scripture. Even in Dead Sea Scrolls, you'll see Genesis and Jubilees found in the same scroll jar by themselves, and there's good reason for that. They are the creation accounts. Boom. The first and second witnesses. We must have the second witness of Genesis called Torah, but by the temple priests, of course, who are the only legitimate ordained keepers of Scripture to the first century. Your scholar was not, your pastor was not, and they don't get an opinion on the topic when they go against what the temple priests kept and used and called Torah. No church, Pharisee, or even modern scholar gets to go backwards and change Torah, nor the entire Old Testament, already established long before they ever took any votes. See, we know that now because we have the archaeology that proves it in Qumran. There you go. So, the Catholic Church, the Pharisees were never connected to the Bible relationship. That's what that proves. Not the relationship of Yahusha and the apostles. Neither one in any sense. They are the opposite, and their doctrines end up going there as well. So let's go to Jubilees 2, verses 5 and 6 here, where we're seeing basically the same text, but a little more detail here. And this explains a little more about how this happened. And on the third day, he commanded the waters to pass from off the face of the whole earth into one place. So again, the waters move. You see that, right? Consistent with Genesis. That's what Genesis has always said. So, when Genesis says they're gathered into one place, now this becomes very obvious, though difficult to understand, without the second witness that the church censored stupidly here. The excess waters pass off the earth, but yet in one swift movement, yet still gathered into one place. How does that work? We'll get there. And the dry land to appear. There you go. Again, just like Genesis. Notice the land, really, it didn't move. It's just there, right? Same in Genesis. It's just there and it just appears. Why? Because the water moves. Only the water moving into what? Into the earth and into channels that Yahuwah carves. Now you'll see, we're going to show you the scriptures that show you that Yahuwah carved those channels of the rivers from Eden, Nahar. Now, where did this excess water go? This is the second separation. Understand that, okay? The first separation, you have the firmament. and it separates the waters that go above the firmament and the waters that go below the firmament. These are all just the waters below the firmament, right? So with the waters above, we've dealt with, we're good with that, right? So now we're dealing with these waters that are remaining on the face of the earth, on the face of the deep, right? Covering over land, the abysses. And then Jubilees 2:6. And the waters did so as he commanded them, same as Genesis, and they retired from off the face of the earth into one place outside of this firmament. Wait, outside the firmament? I know some of them want to go to, the east, the west, the north, the south, whatever, and say, oh, well, see, then it went, there's water outside of the firmament out there in no man's land, right? Wrong. That's not what this is saying. The firmament ends at land, which are the foundations of the earth. They're attached all the way down to the bottom. So when you look at a continent, if you're standing on land right now, you're looking at what is attached to the foundations of the earth. It's all one, right? And that's how the Bible views it, because that's how it is. The Bible's truth. So outside of it, again, not south or whatever direction, is you don't get past the solid firmament. That's clear in Scripture. We've covered that abundantly. They went inside the earth, where they remain connected to the rivers from Eden, which come up from the... Oh, wait. What? How? Well, they have fountains bringing water up from inside the earth, and that still occurs to this very day in the same places. The fountains of the great deep. We learn about them in the flood, but hey, they're here in creation. Now, what science calls, and we cover hydrothermal vents, again, watch the series, that is how salt is introduced into the oceans today. Many ask, how do the oceans get salty? Water flowing through the rock, coming up from within the earth, and that actually, it picks up the minerals, not just salt, but certainly salt. And it's not the only factor. There are other factors too, but that is one major factor as to how the oceans are salty. And it's how, by the way, the rivers from Eden were salty as well. That's another question many people ask. No, they were fresh water, yes, at creation, but once they were formed, right, and the rivers were carved out and the fountains began to operate, bringing the water up from the great deep, again, as it still does to this very day, salt was introduced. Less salty than today, likely, but nevertheless salty. Amazing in Tagalog, by the way, the word parat, which leads to Euphrates. That's okay. The Euphrates named after it. It's not it. It cannot be. It didn't exist before the flood. There was no rain. We'll show you. But that's the fourth river from Eden. And in Tagalog, and this is interesting here in the Philippines, it actually means salty. How about that? I mean, it is amazing in that language how much Hebrew origin you find in much of the language, especially some of the place names, quite a few. These fountains will erupt, causing the start of the flood, and this is all connected in understanding, and we need to connect it in order to understand it, or we never will. Understand this, and you will understand the flood as well, and you will have your foundation set firmly on the Word. The mechanisms are so super well recorded, yet few scholars have even a remote understanding. Mostly because, yes, they live in a paradigm of willing ignorance. What are they ignoring? See, that's ignorance, ignoring. They're ignoring Jubilees, especially. They're ignoring 2nd Esdras. They're even ignoring Psalm. I mean, they just are ignoring so much to land on theories that never existed in ancient times except in the occult, and that's the real problem. Okay, so then, and the dry land appeared. Notice, not a lot of words spent on the dry land in either Genesis or Jubilees, because it's pretty simple. It was just there. It didn't move. The waters moved. That's where the action is. It went inside the earth, the waters, and the remaining waters on the surface went down in all one movement. This is all one movement. They went down into the channels. Now, we already know that during the flood, the same thing happened at the end, and that's how the earth was drained. So the functionality, the mechanisms are already there. Yahuwah built them in right now on day 3 of creation. And he would have to. It doesn't say in the flood account that he created the fountains of the great deep right then. No, creation was done long before, more than 1,000 years prior. So that water, as all water, was created in Genesis 1:2. It's the creation water. None of it is left over from another creation. That's dumb. And there is no recreation in Scripture until the final day of judgment, so you just can't go there. Watch the previous videos. We have just obliterated those nonsensical theories, or really just guesses, bad guesses. Can we now closely know how much of the earth then was water at that point before the flood in the antediluvian world? I mean, you wouldn't think it would be the same as it is after the flood, right? Well, it wasn't. It's drastically different. And yes, we can know a very good ballpark where we're given a balance of land versus water in the antediluvian world. Check this out. Second Esdras, again, 642, found in the King James Apocrypha in 1611, published, translated there, a monumental effort for something that's meaningless, because it's not meaningless. It has massive meaning. It repeats the same concept, the same percentage, 2 more times, in fact, in the text between 42 and 52. Now, upon the 3rd day, okay, so 3rd day again, you did command that the water should be gathered together unto one place, said Genesis, and retired from off the face of the earth into one place outside of this firmament in Jubilees. So these all agree, right? Our witnesses agree, folks. This is Scripture. The water drain, again, if you don't know that already because you haven't read our publishing of Second Esdras, go to 2esdras.org. You can download it for free in eBook and read it. Read the introduction. We test the book. Messiah quotes it himself, and the King James 1611 KJV anchors a margin note saying that Messiah in Matthew, I'm not going to remember the scripture off the top of my head, but in Matthew, when it talks about that scripture, it's right there, the anchor to Second Esdras. So you can't mistake that. The KJV says. So those that are KJV only, well, you're not KJV only if you're not reading Second Esdras, because Messiah said in the KJV and according to the KJV that Second Esdras is inspired scripture and the origin of what Yahusha himself quoted. Now, if he quoted it, how dare anybody say it's not inspired? The water drained to within the earth, leaving only the rivers from Eden channels full of water, basically. That's how this worked. And those were massive in scope, by the way, not like any modern river today. There was no world ocean. That was the principal water system, period. We're going to show you actually a little bit of a breakdown of it from Jubilees that gives that detail some more. But these all match. How do we know? Well, read further. In the 7th part of the earth, okay, so 1/7, it will explain. 6 parts have you dried up and kept them to the intent that of these, some being planted of Elohim and tilled, might serve you. So 6 parts, dry land. 1 part, water. That's the makeup of the ancient world. And by the way, he repeats this 2 other times, especially one of the other times is even more specific, so you can't really read this any other way. So that's about 15%. Okay, so 1/7 of the earth, about 15% water, 85% then would be dry land before the flood. Okay, you know that's not the case today, but wow. I mean, think about that. We actually have this measure. Yahuwah left this for us to learn. And we've had this ancient knowledge all along, and even in the 1611 King James, published, even some Bibles today. And yet, it is ridiculed and marginalized in the dumbest ways by scholars who are not Bible scholars, but scoffers attacking the Word. This is drastically different from any scholarly perspective we've ever reviewed, and on this topic especially. Only 15% water before the flood. And today, the entire balance shifted. Since the flood, water was left, some. 70% water today, the earth is. Wow. I mean, that's 80% more water today than was before the flood. So, man, that changes scientifically in scientific interpretation, whether alone Bible interpretation, on a large scale of anyone trying to even discuss the world before the deluge, of anyone trying to date bones or anything before the deluge. They don't even understand it. They ignore this information in the church and in scholarship and in academia and in science, the science world. They just ignore it. They don't know anything about it, and then they'll sit there and draw conclusions in ignorance, forgetting that this is the case. So they can't interpret anything because they don't know what they're talking about. It's the same with migration patterns. Until you know the Bible's migration patterns, especially Noah's mapping of the world, his division to his 3 sons, you'll never have any clue how it all works. You just won't know for the most part. As you get further along, fine, it gets better and better, although not always. But scholars on ancient geography have proven they are just simply clueless. They really know very little because they choose not to. They operate in willing ignorance, ignoring the other witnesses that we do not. We use them, and look at where all this knowledge comes from. Now, they don't even understand the antediluvian ecosystem and creation, nor the flood, because they ignore the witnesses of Genesis, proven in a credible test to be inspired scripture even. Do your own test. Go ahead. Try to disprove them. Go ahead. You won't do it by reading a blog and saying, oh, well, this blog says. So what? That guy hasn't tested it either. So you study the credible test that we put forth, the Torah test for each of these, and then we dare you to try to take that down. You won't. Now, they could, if they could remove the blinders and the constraints that have been placed on them, and we pray they do. That's our goal. We want to see them wake up, and we want to see you wake up. We want to see all of us wake up. This is important. We are in the age where knowledge is increasing, as Daniel 12:4 predicted. Now, it's up to you, though, to get an understanding of what Scripture says for yourself, because modern scholarship generally, well, they're just not going to. And that's well proven at this point. We've caught so many things. Prove all things, hold fast that which is good. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Genesis 1:10. Now we have a perspective from the angel of the presence, viewing the surface of the earth. Yeah, got to keep looking at this and figure what's his perspective when he's writing this. Where's he standing or suspended in midair, flying or whatever? What's his actual viewpoint in much of this as well? And Elohim called the dry land earth. Hey, there you go. We all know that. And the gathering together of the waters called he seas. Now he's talking about from the surface of the earth. And Elohim saw that it was good. Oh, wait. We just saw the word seas? What? Oh, wait a minute. Did it just say oceans in Genesis? That there was an ocean? Nope, it does not. That is not what that word means. Basically, the Bible defines no ocean. Again, that's what it says. Only 5 mega rivers, but very large ones. So large, most will never find them today because they're attempting to try to fit the puny surface rivers of our earth today that we see, forgetting that the ocean covered over the rivers from Eden with massive waters. And again, that's proven in reference after reference. We do it with science. We do it with Bible. We do it with history, the Dead Sea Scrolls even. I mean, all of it together. It is massively overwhelming that is where these rivers are today, at the bottom of the ocean floor, period. This Hebrew word yam, though, is not specific to oceans. And this is a fallacy. When someone looks at it, you got to understand how it's used in Scripture, because it's not used for ocean exclusively, and it actually doesn't have an exclusive meaning. It's a general term for large bodies of water, period. That's it. That's all it means, and that's all you can interpret from it. That could be an ocean, sure. But when you look at its uses, actually, Yam is used for the Mediterranean and Red Seas. Now, they lead to the ocean indeed, but they're a very small portion of the world ocean. It is used for the Dead or Salt Sea, or Yam, which is, well, a lake. It's not even what we call a sea in modern English today. The same for the Sea of Galilee, which is also a lake, not a sea, in modern English. So you can't look at the word in modern English and understand it. You have to look at the Hebrew and the usage and see, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't mean ocean specifically. It's used for the Nile River. Well, that's not the ocean, last we checked. And even the Great Basin, though incredibly small in terms of the ocean, nor is it connected to it, nor is it salt water, but fresh, in the temple court. So, because it comes up from a spring, of course, from within the earth. It's not a part of the river from Eden system. Yes, there are those trying to force that in Israel, and it's the dumbest theory out there. Because this is an ancient word, sometimes it means westward or really seaward, as the Mediterranean is west of Israel. See, that's the perspective of the writer in some cases, and it's an accurate one. But all seas are not west of Israel, of course. What it cannot be interpreted to mean in Genesis 1 is ocean. As Genesis says, there wasn't one. Esdras says there wasn't one, with a percentage even of the makeup of the land-water ratio balance at creation. Only 15% water, 85% land. Strong's even tells us, though, this term means large body of water. It's right there in the definition even, not specifically ocean. This is not a mystery. It never has been. It's a misapplication of the Hebrew word. We see this confirmed in Psalm 33:7, and with even more detail for clarity, which the Bible's awesome like that. This is the thing. I mean, when you look at the different cross-references in Scripture and you really study this out, the Bible interprets itself much of the time, folks. He gathered the waters of the sea together as an heap. Again, what exactly did he do with them? Where did those waters go? Same language, though, as Genesis, Jubilees, and 2nd Esdras. We're seeing agreement all across the board here with the credible witnesses. Anything not credible, who cares what it says, right? Now, he layeth up the depth in storehouses. Wait. The depth? Oh, that's not in the sky, is it? No. That's not condensing to create rain. No, not at creation. In fact, there was no rain yet. We're going to get there. So no, didn't happen. Storehouses indicates there were places basically created to hold them. Right. That's what a storehouse is. It's a place for storage, a place for holding the waters in this case. So where? Well, some within the earth, and the remaining surface waters into channels that Yahuwah carved, called the rivers from Eden. We're going to show you that, don't worry. It's very detailed in Scripture. It's been there all along. None went up into the sky. They all went down. So we're not talking about them going anywhere else but down. They didn't go outside the firmament on the edges of the surface of the earth. No, they went into the earth, and the remainder stayed on the surface within those channels that were carved for them. And that is it. There's more than one. Okay, it's not just the rivers. There's also lakes. There are some other things we'll talk about, but that's it. There is no rain, and this dynamic is so well documented in Scripture, it's really not questionable at all. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. A psalm of David. The earth is Yahuwah's. Now, he gave man dominion, understand, but he retained ownership. That never changed. Okay, and there is no scripture that he somehow gives it to Satan, or that Satan stole Adam's dominion. That's nonsense. That is a doctrine, especially in some of the churches that I grew up in the Word of Faith movement and some others like that, the evangelicals. There are some within that do teach that, and that's false. Satan is not the God of this world in terms of the actual true God. He's called the God of this world because the world, the people generally choose him as their God. And not Yahuwah. He never gains ownership, and that never transfers even from Yahuwah to man. Man doesn't get ownership. He has dominion, not ownership. That's different. Now, and the fullness thereof, the world, and they that dwell therein. However, where are these seas, which we will prove are actually rivers, as the large bodies of water? That's the word yam there. The general definition will be specified now. Check this out. For he that founded it upon the seas. So there's seas in the foundations. Oh, wait, where are the foundations? The inner earth. So there's a sea of water in the inner earth. Is that some strange theory? No, it's Bible, and it's always been Bible, and science has never disproven it because they've never observed the inner earth. The furthest they've ever bored down into the earth is 7.5 miles, which is laughable that they would then draw conclusions and have theories about a molten core and a sea of magma, which is illiterate. And occult doctrine is what it really is. That's Hades, the god of the underworld from the Greeks, but it's also in Babylonian lore and in Egyptian lore. That's not science, that's the occult. Wow. Now, that's section 1. And then, and established it, which means the foundations, now we're on the surface, upon the, now this word floods is actually the word Nahar, Hebrew, and it's actually rivers. That's the word for river in Hebrew. So these are rivers. So it's established upon the rivers. What rivers? Well, he's talking about the rivers from Eden. And they basically serve as the foundation of waters for the entire ocean. And they still do to this day. That hasn't changed. Now think about it. Think about what this is saying. Basically 2 areas here. All right, let's clarify. The whole earth is founded upon, of course, foundations that are solid of land, but there's a large sea. We're talking about foundations of waters here. Okay, so there's a large sea of water within the earth. Yes, again, magma pockets. Yes, there are magma pockets. We know that. We've seen volcanoes erupt, right? I mean, we know that. Or chambers, if you will. Just as there are oil chambers, right? But oil's not found everywhere. We know that, right? There's not a whole sea of oil inside, yet oil comes up from the earth just like lava or magma does. So not hard to understand that magma, in fact, that magma must be pressurized, and it must be in a chamber in order to explode like that. It really doesn't make any sense to have a sea of magma inside the earth. And again, that has never been a scientific observation nor credible theory in the slightest. And we're going to go head on at that. Don't worry. There are hollow chambers, right? Chambers of nothing. There are also, areas of solid, they're just solid. And the reality is no scientist is ever getting down there. Why? Why can't man go into the inner earth? Well, because Yahushua told us in Revelation, I hold the keys to death and Hades, Hades meaning Sheol, or the underworld. The entire inner earth has doors, or a door and a key, and Yahushua has that. So no scientist is getting in there. They're never going to observe what goes on down there. It's a heavenly perspective, and the prophet Enoch is really the only eyewitness as far as men, but he was shown by archangels who were also eyewitnesses. We also see eyewitnesses with Yahushua going down there into chambers that hold the souls of the dead, where he ministered to, preached to the chamber of the righteous souls who are awaiting the final day of judgment. And we cover that in Where Do We Go When We Die series. Watch it. Don't try to debate that here. We will not allow it. However, a magma sea with a molten core, ludicrous. See, they hate the Bible and propose the opposite. That's what's happening here. With guesses, well, they never prove to be anything more than that. And turns out they come from the occult. That's pretty pathetic. So no scientist has ever observed the Earth's interior. Let's be clear, Enoch did. As men are concerned, he's the only one other than Yahusha who went down there, and he doesn't describe it in great detail. Yes, souls go down there, but they don't come back up typically. There are some resurrected from the dead, and that happened, but that's very rare. The creation account describes it in detail as well. Then the second portion here is the remaining on the surface waters. And they go where? They go into the channels that are carved by Yahuwah, that are their places where the fountains of the great deep exist within as the inhabitant, according to Job. So that's pretty clear. Job says that too. Within the rivers from Eden, the source of the flood in part. And this word floods, again, not really floods. The Hebrew word nahar is the word for river, or rivers in this case, plural. And those are the rivers from Eden, period. The surface of the earth is established upon the rivers from Eden. That's what this is saying, which are located on the bottom of the ocean floor today, where it has to be. But before the flood, there was no ocean, so you could see them. And Enoch did. And he describes them as 7, not 5. But again, he just splits them in a different place, culminating in 7. But his descriptions make it clear he's still talking about the same 5 that Moses mentions. And 5, 7, pretty much same thing. Give me a break. They are still there. They still operate. And without them, the ocean's ecosystem would be drastically different. We cover that. Watch the series. Which would not likely be good for life on Earth. They still matter, and they still will in the very end times. How about that? We're going to go there too. In the next video, we'll cover that a little. So we're off to a good start for the third day of creation. We'll continue in the next video, I think maybe even 2 more. Regarding these rivers from Eden. The waters recede off the face of the earth into the inner earth, and the remainder recede into channels called the rivers from Eden. We're going to explore this more next and prove it from Scripture. Along with some lakes, essentially. You'll see more on this next video, which is a continuation answering many questions, such as, how does this all break down? Are we sure there is no world ocean? Oh, we definitely are. That's indisputable, but you'll see. What about the word seas in the creation account? Is it specific to oceans, or is it just a general term for large bodies of water that includes rivers and even lakes and other such, entities? Whoa, yeah, that's a good one too. Where are these rivers now? How exactly were they created? Scripture is that specific on this, in fact, that it tells us exactly how Yahuwah did it. Why is it modern scholars don't know there was no rain in Genesis 2, thus the Tigris, modern Euphrates, Nile, Blue Nile, even the Amazon? Well, none of them existed prior to the flood, and certainly not at creation in Genesis 2 there. That's their source, rainfall, even today. And they don't have a source river feeding any of them. So how is it that so many scholars can be so clueless on this? In fact, following the occult account in Tigris and in Mesopotamia, where their occult creation myth originates, which is not the Bible, last I checked. Maybe scholars should learn how to read and stop propagating the occult. How about that? How is it that they do not know that at creation, the waters which receded into the rivers from Eden channels, Yahuwah carved out, were the same creation waters of Genesis 1:2. Thus again, not rain. So all those modern rivers that originate in rainfall, illiterate. to try to insert them into the Bible narrative. More on this next. Yah bless. We have over 500 videos on this channel. Wow, 500! Yeah, boy! Imagine that. Many just as profound, with some 50 or so in Tagalog for Filipinos, 6 in Spanish to start. We also have been setting up subtitles for 20 plus languages for most of our videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications of new uploads. Join our email list, as YouTube, well, they just forget to notify often. Conveniently, and we will notify you ourselves at thegodculture.com. Just fill in the pop-up there. We have alternative platforms for videos on Rumble, Odyssey, and Player, formerly Utreon. They've changed their name just recently. And our podcast is also available for most of our videos as well. All links in the description box. Friend us on Facebook at The God Culture, space original. If you prefer an alternative, we have Gab and Parler, though it was just bought out as well and hopefully will be up again soon. It's not right now, or at least not as the recording of this video, but links below. We have 7 books published internationally, being read in over 100 countries, and we're progressing towards our next releases very soon. We also have now launched Ophir Philippines Coffee Table book in the US, Canada, and UK, and many overseas markets on Amazon, and it is available in hardcover or softcover color, as well as softcover black and white. Additionally, we launched the Book of Jubilees, the Torah calendar with colored maps and interior, as many had requested, overseas on Amazon as well. We already have that in the Philippines with color maps, but that too is available on Amazon in color, hardcover, or softcover, and black and white softcover if you wish. All books except Bible History Illustrated are free in eBook. And that one even is available free in animation, a video on the series where we do one video with the whole thing, and we break it down into 5 separate videos as well. It's all there free of charge. Our content, folks, is free. Just go to ophirinstitute.com for all the links for your area for all of our books. More coming very soon. And check out our cool trailers next. Thank you for watching. Now always remember, prove all things for yourself. Yah bless to everyone.